My kids love this book, and I'm going to read one of their favorite stories, The Inch Prince. Long ago, in a remote village in China, there lived an old couple named Mr. and Mrs. Ping. Their home was a tiny house at the foot of a mountain beside a rushing river. The Pings loved it. Look at their fish. Every day, Mr. Ping weeded the beans and the rest of the plants in their vegetable plot. Meanwhile, Mrs. Ping fed the chickens and all their other animals. As dusk fell, the couple watered the sweet-smelling flowers in their beautiful garden. The Pings had everything they could possibly want. Well, almost. I wish we had some children, sighed Mrs. Ping sadly one evening. So do I, said Mr. Ping, but only a teeny child could fit in our tiny house. We hardly have room for the cat. Where's the cat? Small things can be special too, said his wife. Maybe, said Mr. Ping, but they'd need to be the smallest child in the world to fit in here. I wouldn't care if they were just 1 inch tall, said Mrs. Ping. At that very moment, a fairy happened to be flying past. She overheard what Mr. and Mrs. Ping were saying. She noticed their healthy, plump vegetables growing away in the sun, not to mention their contented animals and their enormous blossoming flowers. These two are obviously very good at looking after everything around them, thought the fairy. They deserve to be looked after too. With that, she hovered over the Ping's tiny house, waved her magic wand, and whispered some magic words. Jumping beans and flying fish, give these folk their dearest wish. Soon afterwards, Mr. and Mrs. Ping became the proud parents of a teeny-weeny boy. In fact, he was so teeny, he was just 1 inch tall. Well, we wanted a small child. Isn't he sweet? Let's name him Ison Boshi, said Mrs. Ping. It means 1 inch boy. And we could call him Issy for short, said her husband. Very short, he added with a smile. Time passed quickly for the Pings and their new son. Each year, their vegetables grew more plump, their animals grew bigger and fatter, and their flowers grew so tall they almost fell over. But Issy never grew any higher than 1 inch tall. See? Maybe if I stand on tiptoe. He was 1 year old, then 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, still 1 inch tall. Issy was so tiny, the Pings had to find new uses for everyday objects. A bottle top from Mr. Ping's homemade rice wine became a bathtub. One of the shoelaces from Mrs. Ping's pink walking boots was turned into a scarf. A dried pea made a great ball. Goal! Mrs. Ping's button collection was put to good use as dinner plates, and every night Issy curled up to sleep in his little matchbox bed. When he was 18 years old, it was time for Issy to leave home. I'll get a job in the city, he announced confidently. His parents gave him 3 presents for his journey. He had a rice bowl for a boat, 2 wooden chopsticks, which made a fine pair of oars, and a sword to defend himself. Actually, Mrs. Ping's sharpest needle. Issy set off on his long journey down the river, between the tall mountains, past sleepy little villages, around wild woods, and through walled market towns, until he reached the bustling big city. Issy clambered ashore and scuttled along the crowded streets. I'll ask the emperor for a job, he thought. Well, that's if I don't get squashed first. After dodging hundreds of stomping feet, Issy finally reached the Emperor's enormous palace. He strode up to the guards on the gate. Issy puffed out his chest. "I'd like a job," he declared, politely but firmly. The guards looked down and laughed. "Ha ha ha! You're teeny," said one with a chuckle. "What could a pipsqueak like you do?" That doesn't sound very kind, does it? "I can run past you for a start," said Issy. "Hey, where did he go?" Whoosh! He jumped over the guard's foot and darted into the palace before anyone could stop him. In the courtyard, a maid was busy washing the royal robes. "I'd like a job," said Issy. "Hee, you're a weenie," chuckled the maid. "What can you do?" "I can run past you for a start," Issy replied. Whoosh! Hey, where did he go? He jumped over the maid's soap, sprinted into the palace kitchen. A cook was preparing the royal dinner. "I'd like a job," said Issy. "Ha!" snorted the cook as he stirred a pot of squelchy cabbage. "You're tiny. What can you do?" "I can run past you for a start," answered Issy with a grin. Whoosh! Hey, where did he go? See, he's running off. He swerved around the cook's oven and dashed into the next room. Issy gasped. He'd arrived in the throne room. He bowed respectfully to the Emperor and the Princess. "I'd like a job, please," said Issy. See, there's the Emperor and the Princess. "Would you now?" said the Emperor. "He's teeny weeny, Daddy," said Princess Chi-Chi. "What can he do?" "Well, I ran past your guard, your maid and your cook to get here," said Issy proudly. "They couldn't stop me." The Emperor thought for a moment. "You can look after Princess Chi-Chi," he said. "She needs a bodyguard." "But Daddy," moaned the princess, "how could he defend me? He's only 1 inch tall." "Small things can be special too," said the Emperor wisely. "You're hired." "Thank you, Your Majesty," said Issy. From then on, Issy never left the princess's side. He was there in the morning. He was there in the afternoon. He was even there all night. One day, the princess left the palace to visit her aunt far beyond the city. As usual, Issy was right by her side. After many miles, they came to a dark forest. "I'm scared," said Princess Chi-Chi. "I'll look after you," said Issy. "What could you do?" quivered the princess. Then a terrifying roar echoed around the wood. "Roar! Help!" A giant ogre crashed through the trees. He reached out to grab the princess. Is Issy scared? Nope. He's brave. "Put her down!" shouted Issy with all his might. "Earl, you," grunted the ogre. "What could you do?" With that, the ogre scooped up Issy. I love bite-sized snacks," he said, and popped Issy in his mouth. Issy thought quickly. He took his needle sword and pricked the ogre's tongue. The ogre let out an ear-splitting howl. "Take that! Oh!" The ogre spat out Issy and ran off into the woods. "That'll teach him," cried the tiny bodyguard. "Thank you, Issy," said the princess. "You saved my life." "Hey, look," said Issy. "The ogre left his hammer behind." "The legends say that an ogre's hammer is magic," said the princess excitedly. She tried to pick up the massive tool, but it was far too heavy. "I wish you were bigger, Issy," she puffed. "Then maybe you could lift it." Instantly, a cloud of magical stars shot out of the hammer and swept around Issy. What's going on?" he cried. "What do you think's happening?" Issy felt something strange happening. His arms seemed to be getting longer, and his legs. In fact, his whole body was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Seconds later, he found himself standing shoulder to shoulder with the princess for the very first time. "I'm as tall as you," cried Izzy. "The hammer must have granted your wish." The princess fell in love with Izzy, but not because he was tall. She loved him because he was brave. It wasn't long before they got married and lived in a house next to the palace. The house was small, but Prince Izzy and Princess Chi-Chi were very happy. They both knew that small things can be special too.